Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Talking Nerdy podcast. Today we have Aaron, Sam, and Megan sharing our thoughts on Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
Yes.
So we just saw this movie.
That's the official name of it?
Yeah.
Oh, my bad.
So we just saw the movie last night. Just going to say right at the beginning here, this is going to be spoiler alert.
Heavy.
We're going to definitely be talking about the plot of not just this film, but the whole franchise and how it ties in and stuff. So if you've not seen the movies yet and you don't want spoilers, watch whatever you need to watch. If you don't care, then continue.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is the technically the 5th Jurassic Park movie,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the 2nd of the Jurassic World, what I'm assuming is going to be a trilogy.
Right. I would also assume trilogy, but I don't know why I assumed that. It's because just the first round was a trilogy, so...
Yeah.
Well, and also if they can make more money from something, they're going to.
Of course.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, and
Gotta love the franchise.
not to talk about the ending right at the beginning, but I think they've left it where...
Where did you begin? Where better to begin than the end?
It could definitely be leading up to another film. But... I don't know, let's just give our initial, before we even get into any details, did you guys even like the film?
I
did
liked
like
it. I thought it had a good arc with it, honestly. And, I don't know, they didn't... None of the jokes or anything was played out in a kind of, it wasn't in a dumb way or anything.
You mean it wasn't cheesy?
Yeah,
Is that what
basically
you're
it wasn't
saying?
cheesy, sorry.
It definitely wasn't. Yeah.
No.
I definitely liked it. I think because it rekindled some of, the more crazy, suspenseful feelings of some old Jurassic Park films. But, I mean, we can talk about the old ones versus this one in a minute.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I thought the acting was very good. I loved some of the cinematography, if I could speak correctly today.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some really neat shots, some really cool design.
I liked that so many old white rich men, got fucking eaten. That was my favorite part, personally.
Beautiful.
Sorry if that's too much, but I just really...
Everyone likes different aspects.
My favorite part that I was just like, ooh, these suckers gonna die. Yeah.
What I really liked was that this was kind of a darker movie.
Mm-hmm. It really was.
Especially one compared to not even the rest of the franchise, but just comparing it directly with Jurassic World. So
which we watched right before
Which we
went
watched,
to go see
know.
the movie, so that was very fresh in our heads.
And I actually really liked that because something that I never would have caught, but because I did, I really appreciated, and this is tying in with the cinematography, was the first shot that you see of Claire in Jurassic World, the first one, is her shoes on the elevator, and the elevator's coming down, and she's wearing the clean white dress and everything.
Her crisp white outfit.
She's introduced in this movie in the exact same way.
Oh, she is?
Oh,
It
yeah,
starts
riding
with
an
her-
elevator.
Starts with her shoes, and she's riding an elevator, but
Oh,
she's
yeah,
wearing
right.
dingier clothes and jeans, and then she's in this holding coffee.
Yeah.
And
Her hair is up and back,
Right.
then
You're totally
all
right. I just
but
realized that.
both movies introduced the same character in the exact same way, but in an entirely different setting, and I was like, I love that.
I
Right.
didn't even think of
I
that.
love
That's such
that.
a
'Cause
great
then,
thing to realize.
You know, stan accounts on social media, then they're gonna put those two side by side, especially on Tumblr or something. That's gonna be a Tumblr post at
It's
some
gonna be
point.
some
It's just
gift sets.
both gift sets, yeah.
But it's just just a subtle little nod, because it is a sequel. But it takes place, the movie came out 3 years later, and in the film it takes place 3 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just right off the bat, the dinosaurs are going to die. Do we have a moral obligation? Do they have rights? It's private land. Does the government step in? It's just whoa, okay.
Yeah, one of my initial thoughts, a decent amount into, not even a decent amount, but after the first bit of the movie was, wow, they got into this really fast. Things are introduced, decisions need to be made, decisions are made, and then they're in action, because in the trailers, all I remember really seeing was oh no, the volcano, and them running from it. So I'm wow, they're going to spend a lot of time on this island if they're diving this quickly into the movie. but then them being on the island wasn't even a very big part of the movie.
Like 80% of the film is off the island.
Because you don't see any of that in the trailer.
Right.
I feel like the trailer is like some of them doing some things, and then the big thing is the island.
Right.
I just should we have put a spoiler alert on this?
We already did.
Oh, we did?
Yeah.
Good.
I'm sorry.
And that's just it. If for those that remember the ad campaign for the first Jurassic World, every week was a new trailer with new footage, and they gave away
much of it.
There were scenes from like the last 10 minutes of the film in the trailer. Like they were really giving away everything.
Yeah.
And like I love Jurassic Park, but by the time the movie came out, I was like, do I even want to go like right now? I've already seen half the film.
I feel like I get what's going to happen, so why do I need to watch the movie? Kind of a deal.
But with this movie, I've seen the same one trailer for the last year. Mm-hmm. You know, with maybe a couple little promotional things that have like released some other stuff, but it's like you really didn't. I mean, unless you were really digging, but just for a casual...
Not much was released.
Right. You know, you didn't really get overwhelmed with, this is what the film's about, go see it, go see it. They kind of backed off, and I really appreciate that, because that is what makes me want to go see the film more. Give me as little as possible, and I will want to find out the rest.
Yeah,
you give me too much, and I'm like, what's the point?
Especially for, like I was saying earlier, I really liked some of like the really suspenseful aspects that were going on throughout the film. And I feel like the fact that I didn't realize that the film wasn't just going to be them running from a volcano for 3 hours, like when we started getting into after that, essentially, I don't know, I just found it to be like, I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm kind of excited. But then there was that part of me that was like, I feel like I know what's going to happen because I feel like I've seen this exact movie before.
Right. And so that's definitely interesting. This movie was more back to the horror suspense, you know, the Spielberg moments.
Which is what I love.
Whereas the first Jurassic World was very much an action film. Action, action, action. Not a lot of suspenseful moments in the first one. A lot of like just like boom, 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 all this crazy stuff's happening. And a lot of crazy stuff happened in Fallen Kingdom, but there was so much suspense and dark sets and the whole shadows. And
you were talking even earlier, I feel like it's like the dark, gritty sequel to the first one in a lot of ways, and that they were kind of aware of that. Because like you were saying, like the first shot of the film, or like the first shot of Claire is her in this crisp white outfit. It's taking place on this sunny island. Like everything's really upbeat,
the park
and happy.
Works and everything.
You're like, oh wow, everything's so bright and shiny. And then the second one, it's like it's raining for a lot of it. There's a lot of like dark shots and dark atmosphere. And then Claire's outfit is darker when she's, I don't know. I think that's a really interesting contrast.
For sure. Well, and this, we had like a brief pre-discussion about this before the podcast.
In the car driving back.
Yeah, because we had to talk at least a little bit. I was like, save your thoughts for the podcast, but like there were some things that we just had to talk about immediately. And part of it was, like you said, you know, there was a lot of suspense, but part of you really thought that, you know, you did know what was going to come next. And that's because with Jurassic World, there was enough of an homage to Jurassic Park, but not like a direct remake of the film. And so with this one, what we talked about was it was a great movie, but also like it was kind of just the Lost World.
Yeah, it was kind of just the OG Jurassic Park 2.
Right. So, like,
what
was the line between an homage and a remake / sequel, especially in a world with, like, everyone bashing on The Force Awakens, because it's like, oh, we finally get a Star Wars film and you just give us A New Hope all over again? Like, you know. But then, like, The Last Jedi is too different. Like, I don't like it. So it's like, in a world where, like, if you're not rebooting, you're sequeling decades later, then how do you have enough of a balance to appease the original fans, but then like have enough difference? But this was very much like,
I think it's a hard balance to strike too, honestly.
This was very much like, we have to go back to the island old man in mansion recruits person who had been there before, who then recruits other people that don't want to go, but they go to protect someone. They get there, everything's wrecked. It's very dark. It's very gritty.
There's a double crossing.
And right. Yeah. You think you're there to save the dinosaurs. You get double crossed by the team, so you form your smaller team that sabotages their operation. You follow them back to their base, which is off the island, and then there's raptors on a rooftop sequence, and there's impalement and all this stuff. You have the scene with the T-Rex in the tent with the little girl, and in this one you have the Indoraptor in the bed with the So it's
if we just played that small you summarizing it, people would be like, is that the new one or the old one? And
exactly.
That's the exact point.
And so what I'm trying to figure out, because I did like this film, but what I'm trying to figure out in my brain, and I haven't decided yet, is it too similar or is it different enough that I'm okay with it? And right now I'm leaning towards different enough that I'm okay with it, especially the end half of the film. The beginning with the whole rescue op and not really being a rescue op and everything is very, very similar to The Lost World. But then the second half of the film, I mean, obviously the volcano is a whole different thing, but
there are they did switch up a few different aspects of it, which I appreciate. I don't know, I just I lost my train of thought immediately. Phil Aaron.
It's okay. Filler? What?
Filler Aaron.
What?
Phil Aaron.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think it was okay, especially since there's a lot more dinosaurs in this one. Mm-hmm. It's not focused, and it's continuing the story, whereas with The Lost World to Jurassic Park, very, very different film, all new cast except
Jeff Goldblum, the illustrious.
Which Jeff Goldblum reprised his role as Dr. Ian Malcolm in this one, but he wasn't on the island. He was just simply at a Senate committee hearing or whatever, basically let him die.
Yeah.
He's let him die. Let the dinosaurs die. This is humanity, or not humanity, this is nature correcting humanity's mistake.
He's we played God.
Right.
And he had all the of Jeff Goldblum's speech. Our beautiful dinosaurs.
Right.
Love it. But
this is the Jeff Goldblum movie.
Yeah, the Jeff Goldblum movie.
No, that was Thor 3. Thor Ragnarok.
Jeff Goldblum as Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum in space.
But anyway, I remember one of the things that was going along with, it does change at the end and things, but since it was so similar, would you consider that a reboot or a rehashing? What are the differences between that?
Well, and that's just it, because it's not a reboot, because they constantly remind you this is all the same island, the same universe. John Hammond's mistakes are not our mistakes, or we're just making the same mistakes again, and why didn't we learn? And so they constantly remind you that this is the same universe, kind of like with Star Wars. They're there's so much throwback.
Absolutely.
Whereas Star Trek was just no, parallel universe, we're starting over, same characters, all new. And that was okay, because then they could do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, it gave them a little bit more freedom.
They didn't have to worry about the balance of reusing versus new material.
Yeah, they just took the assets of it and then created their own stories with those assets rather than retelling the same story.
But this one, every single thing that happened in the first 3 movies happened. And then in these, 2 sequels, with the new park, all those things are acknowledged, and yet there's so many parallels in the films that... And I don't know if that's because they're just using material that's already been used, again, as an homage, or because it's easy, because it's already there. Mm-hmm. Or if they're just harping on the fact that humanity will never change. People will always just keep doing the same thing. The greed will always, take over in these kinds of situations where man tries to play God. And just because it went wrong once, went wrong twice, went wrong 3 times, doesn't mean 20 years later technology and money is going to make it go right.
Yeah.
So maybe they're just sticking with the themes that were established just to show again and again and again why it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So you could really argue both sides, and I guess it really boils down to what the people making the movie were actually thinking.
Yeah.
You know, what were they doing when they were writing it? Were they going deep and saying, you know, reoccurring themes, symbolism, and all this stuff? Or they were just like, everyone's forgotten that movie from 1997, right? Like, let's pull some stuff in. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, or like maybe it wasn't necessarily what they were going for. What they were going for was an homage, but like someone just went way too heavy-handed with it, and it was a mistake.
Right.
But I mean, like we said, we're like, it's leaning towards like, it's okay. We can forgive the fact that like we could predict all of that.
I appreciate a lot of the nods and the similarities and stuff, but there's always that line. And was that line crossed in this film? Was there too much following the Lost World?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I still haven't really decided. But, I mean, you get a lot of new characters. You know, very different characters. And that's just it. You have a lot of very different characters than the older films. But, and also dinosaur surgery.
Dinosaur surgery.
You had the baby T-Rex in the one film. You had the Velociraptor in this one. And that whole sequence with, you know, them all trying to figure it out. But
the old film was about T-Rexes.
My only theory about that is because, like, this whole movie is just, like, you know, the fall of man, like, by their own mistakes, and you sit there just like...
Hubris.
I know. You just sit there like, why the fuck would they do that again? Like, they're doing this to themselves, blah, 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 blah. But I think that's a moment where you're watching, like, the pain of a dinosaur, and you get a little bit attached to it, like, as if a puppy on screen was getting hurt. Mm-hmm. And then you start to be like, oh, like, you know, they are, and, like, you get a little bit of the feelings of, like, understanding why it could be a hubris, I guess.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I think that's supposed to be part of it, is just like making it more than just like, oh, this is dumb, they did it again. You know what I mean? But that's my only theory. Maybe it's like too overthought.
No,
you're
right. Yeah.
Because it's more of an intelligent decision rather than just like when you're watching the movie and it's like, oh, why would they go in the woods after the serial killer or whatever?
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, these dumb teens, blah, blah, blah. But in this one, it's like, you can kind of relate in that way where it's like, I can see the hubris and...
Well, especially that they, like, kind of made it as if the daughter is a human version of this. Mm-hmm. Like, and you get very, attached to the daughter. It's just, like, she's dealing with all these fears and emotions. And it's, like, so it's basically, like, these people have feelings even though they're created by man and, like, not the way that they were...
You want to touch on that?
That they were originally thinking
Super extra spoiler alert. You find out
extra spoiler alert.
The child in this film is a clone.
Created with the same technology.
Using the same technology.
She's not the granddaughter. Yeah, so if you haven't seen this movie, don't listen to this podcast.
We've warned them twice, it's too late.
It's fine. Yeah. So, so what they do is, what this film does really well is, for lack of a better term, humanizes the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because the film number one, you know, they lightly touch on the, you know, just because you could, did you stop to think whether or not you should? Mm-hmm. You know, that Dr. Malcolm line. But
delivered that way, exactly.
Yeah.
Just because you could. Sorry.
But everyone else is just kind of like, I mean, yeah, but like moving on with the plot, you know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, you know, these theme park monsters, and it's horror, and these animals from the past that were these genetically engineered creatures. And then with the second movie, it's like, you know, they're assets with all the money tied up in them, and you get to like, there's some scenes where they're like trapped in cages and they're sad, and you're like, oh, man, they are animals, but still not really focusing on it. It's all about the action and the suspense. And then the third movie, not even relevant to that topic.
I know.
What, you're pointing at me? You want to interrupt?
Well, for this one, another thing, like human characteristic or like thing, is when this new one, like Indoraptor, that they made, like there's parts that he's able to play a trick purposely on.
Well, the Velociraptors have done that in all the movies.
I know,
just showing the intelligence.
I know, but like that's part of it. Is I feel like they're showing like all sides that a human can have. They're very personified. Yeah,
they definitely
AP English.
AP English. But no, definitely it tries to, I think the movie does that to try and like invoke more empathy for the end when like you're like, oh no, they are dying, because I feel like that's kind of where something that I liked about the movie is the beginning. It's, you could probably fall on either side of the camp the way it's introduced, of like they're doing like these cold calls to people trying to be like, donate to save the raptors, mister, or whatever. And so I feel like I started the movie like, no, let him die. Listen to Jeff Goldblum.
Right. This was a mistake.
Then as you like see more and more of the dinosaurs, see all these things happening to them,
and you're like,
see
they
all
didn't
of these like qualities.
They don't know.
Right.
They're
and then
alive.
like when you're like, oh no, they're gonna die at the end, that's
and
when you really
scared.
feel. But at the very beginning of the movie, you didn't care if they got burned by the volcano until you like, oh, that one's my favorite throughout the movie, and like develop this empathy. And I think that's really nice writing.
And I was like, you're not gonna let my long neck out? Are you kidding me?
And that's just it. So many of the films
I was so upset.
have focused on the carnivores, the T-Rex, the velociraptors, and they kill the people in the movie. Of course, some of the people that die, you're happy they die, but like, you know, they're still portrayed as these killing machines. And with Jurassic World, you had the Indominus Rex and the Velociraptors, you know. Are they trainable? Are they wild? And this one. But with this movie, they really spent some time with the herbivores, which is something that there's always been in every movie, some beautiful scene where it's an African safari or whatever. But it's just a panoramic shot. It's just simply to show, like, look at our cool aerial helicopter Hawaii shot with CG dinosaurs.
Yeah.
This one, they really made it like, you know, these animals are hurting. The volcano's going to kill them. They're scared. They're in these cages. There's toxic gas. They're just like any other animal. You know, there's that scene at the end where there's carnivores and herbivores together in the same room, but they're not fighting. They're all just afraid and want to get out of the... And so that's where this film succeeded in really showing that genetically engineered monsters, creatures or not, 30 years later, these beings, and that's just it, they've been breeding. So these ones that we have decades later may not even have been genetically engineered. They may have been born and lived a full life.
Right. Definitely.
And so they're animals. They're alive. And so this film really touches on the real world implications that only have ever just been like in the background. Like, yeah, it's bad, but let's get back to someone getting eaten. And plenty of people got eaten in this film. I mean, don't get me wrong.
But this movie makes you vegan, for sure.
But they really got
don't eat dinosaurs.
Right. They really got into the, you know, private property, government intervention, you know, de-extinct facing re-extinction.
All the shit we are dealing with right now with like animals.
Well, to a degree, yes. It does. The politics of the movie do mirror certain aspects of politics today. But its main focus simply was just to bring to the forefront the issues that were always in the background. So these are implications of the technology, you know, jumping into human cloning. Just so the moral aspects of, okay, and then the moral aspect of, well, now that this has been done, we're no longer in the should we have done it category.
Yeah,
but we're now in the what is next category. This has happened. You know, like Jeff Goldblum says, like, they're in our world now. Things are going to change. It's a new era. What are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
You know, and that's very much what I think will lead into the next film, where the dinosaurs live in, you know, not society, but in
human society, though. Like,
I mean, a
place that's kind of like forgotten about them for this long, and like one of the shots is like raptors heading towards the suburbs,
right
at the very end, and I'm
Blue.
like, my God, that's not a thing that like some like middle-aged woman in the suburbs is gonna be thinking about.
My favorite is the Mosasaurus with the surfers.
Yeah,
there were some great Mosasaurus scenes.
Horrifying. If you had been sitting next to me, and I spent all of like the first Jurassic World being like, oh, that one, every time it's on screen, like, it's really interesting to me, but it's the most frightening dinosaur to me. I'm like, I can handle everything else, but the Mosasaur, no. And so I would like cringe into myself every time it was on screen, and it was the same way watching in the theater, but Aaron was a person away from me, so he didn't see me like pull my arms into my chest in fear.
Right. I was thinking about it though, because I was like, there's so many parts of this movie that are like.
It's like emerging from the shadows so slowly in that beginning shot, and I'm like,
and it's just the lightning, and you see its shadow, and that's just
horrifying.
The lightning, the rain, the shadows, the reflections. They really got into the horror suspense,
which is what I love about movies with dinosaurs. No, but just like a lot of different Spielberg movies and. Jurassic Park specifically, I was very afraid of dinosaurs for a time because I was.
I mean, same with sharks.
Yeah.
Still a little afraid.
Because specifically, like the dark, like rainy scenes where they're. They're like in this imminent danger, and you don't know if things are gonna be okay, and there's like ramping up music, and it slowly walks into the room, and I'm like that. Definitely came through in this film, and that's what I loved about that. Eating chocolate.
I know, I'm eating chocolate. And that just reminded me, with the raptors from the first film, the scene with them in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Total classic horror sequence.
Yeah.
With the kids.
There was a nod to with the little claw tap.
Doing the tick, tick, tick.
You remember that?
Tick, tick, tick.
Yeah, I remember that shot so well from the original that like you see its foot and then it just
impatiently
tap, tap.
ticking.
Yeah. Love it.
And the other nod to that scene is in the first movie, Lex, the girl, hides in the like little storage container, and the door's stuck and she's trying to close it and the raptor's running towards her and she closes it and it smashes into the reflection.
Yeah.
In this one,
it's like
you have the girl in the
dumbwaiter.
Dumbwaiter. Yeah, the laundry chute thing.
It's coming right at her.
It's running down the hallway, and she's trying to get the wooden door closed, and then she closes it, and it smashes right into it. For a second,
I wasn't entirely sure she couldn't get it closed. I thought she was just frozen in fear, and I was very angry. And then I'm like, well, maybe she was trying. I don't know. I didn't think it was
either way,
obvious.
There was the delay for the suspense, but I was like, oh, that's, again, a very similar scene. And those I like because that was a throwback to the original movie whose plot they weren't mimicking. So that was simply just a cinematic homage, and I appreciate those a lot.
Yeah.
What was your favorite dinosaur, Megan?
I like the long necks.
You like the long necks?
Those are my favorite. They're so cute. But then,
I don't know any dinosaur names, but
what was the one that got left on the island? Because that I was
so
close to tears. Are you kidding me? That was what?
That was a Brachiosaurus.
I was so upset. He was like crying. And
then the hot smoke just envelops him.
He's like running towards the dog, like, wait for me, guys.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
It made me so sad.
It was a very drawn out emotional moment.
I know, and then he was just like,
and then all the close up shots of like Chris Pratt
just
crying,
staring in horror at this dinosaur.
I know, but for me, I'm like, I'm thinking of my pet in that moment. Just like if there was a fire, just looking at me from the window, like, hey, I'm not okay. Just.
But it brought out the emotional response.
Oh no, but now I'm like, save that dinosaur. Are you kidding me?
I liked the introduction of new species that weren't in previous films. I mean, you had the same dinosaurs you always see.
Yeah.
And that same fucking geneticist, Dr. Wu.
Yeah, Dr. Wu. Okay, what?
This asshole.
Suck Dr. Wu.
I expect a response when Steven Spielberg listens to this podcast. My question to you...
What the fuck?
He's our number one viewer. Every podcast that comes out, Spielberg is like, I rang the notification bell.
Right?
I'm ready.
My question to you is, in 1993... when Dr. Wu is just this super young Asian actor with like 3 lines that probably like interviewed at...
He's like the intern in the lab.
Yeah.
Got coffee.
Yeah. Was that character like... did anyone like... was it supposed to be his idea, this whole thing? Like...
he's like, yeah, but like if they ever reboot the series, they better bring back Wu because I have this insane...
backstory for this guy.
Spielberg started, he didn't originally want to do Jurassic Park, but he had created this character in his mind.
And what's funny
and created lore for Dr. Wu, and he's like, I need to do something with him.
Jurassic Park is tied for my favorite film of all time. So Raiders of the Lost Ark and Jurassic Park are tied for me. So I watched the first Jurassic Park a lot as a kid. And my dad would usually watch it with me. And every time there's the scene with Dr. Wu and them in the lab, my dad would always make fun of the guy because in every scene, he's erasing. He's not writing, he's erasing. My dad's like, what kind of engineer geneticist is this guy? He's just like...
What fucking job does he have?
Right? Every time he's like being all snarky like, oh, we bred them that way. And he's like fucking erasing shit on his clipboard. Like... How bad are you at your job?
To imagine he was like drawing snarky caricatures of whoever he's talking to, and then he'd erase on the clipboard.
But no, 30 years later, he's the mastermind of the entire park that made the breakthrough, and John Hammond was just the guy that like gave him the money for it. And I'm like,
he knows every atom of that animal,
right, and every genome that was spliced in. I mean, he was the one that told him about the frog DNA and stuff in the first movie,
one,
but like he was just some random guy. So Steven Spielberg, when that character was created and was on camera, was there an off-camera discussion about like who he was, or did he not matter until like did Colin Trevorrow or whatever his name is, when he did Jurassic World, did he email like 30 guys that were extras in the first movie, and this guy was the only one that responded and was like, I'll come back, and they're like, you're getting this backstory, like. What was the thought process on that? Because now he's been in all these films. I think he now has been in... Well, okay, so technically he's now tied with Jeff Goldblum for having been in the most Jurassic Park films. Yeah, that's true. They've each been in 3.
But who had the bigger part? Well, you could argue.
Obviously, Dr. Malcolm, but...
I don't know. In this new one, Dr. Malcolm is in the beginning and the end.
That's true.
Dr. Wu's there throughout.
That's true. And in Jurassic World, Dr. Wu was in it a lot in the park, and all his research and stuff, and InGen being in the background, manipulating the strings and all that. But I don't know. It's just very interesting that they chose that character, and it's so funny that he always comes back and he's like, this is my accomplishments and my science, and you can't stop me, and like we have to do everything my way. And it's like... Mm-hmm. Dude, like, you were like 18 and erasing shit on a clipboard, like...
Remember your roots, Dr. Wu.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little bit silly to think of all of the people they could bring back.
Right.
And bring him.
Right. But, not to say that I don't appreciate the tie-in.
No,
it's something, especially with the first Jurassic World, to have that reveal. Silly. It's like, but it's just funny when you really think about it at that level.
Yeah,
like, but why?
I would like to talk.
Did you
first of all?
No, I just read something on it. No.
Oh, interesting.
Do not eat.
Yes.
I wanted to say, like, speaking of how kind of silly things like that, I wanted to say, were there any like silly things that you guys noticed that you were kind of like, I don't know about that, or like?
Oh, to Steven? Are we talking
no, we're not
right now?
No.
He stopped listening. He's sad. He's rewriting the whole movie. He's writing a personal letter to Aaron. No, I just wanted to say,
Dear
like,
Aaron.
did you? Because I enjoyed it. It was a very fun movie. It was very cool, very still gritty and suspenseful. Mm-hmm. But like, were there some like things that seemed a little bit silly to you? Because some things seemed a little bit silly to me.
Yeah,
or just little things to notice.
Well, all the Jurassic Park films have moments of humor and cheese. Mm-hmm. You know,
so
that's something that's always been.
Chris Pratt as like a character in most movies is like a little cheesy or a little like silly jokes.
Funny. He's like
he is funny. It's just like
the way I saw Chris Pratt in this movie was like old-timey Clark Gable.
Yeah.
But mixed with like Indiana Jones is how I saw him. It's like this, like, he has a lot of witty comebacks for people, and he furrows his brow and smiles a lot like Clark Gable, and then he punches a dude in the face like Indiana Jones. Yep.
So
it was like badass adventure.
For me, the scene that was too much, I guess you could call it cheese, but it was just too much, was at the end, you've got Claire and Owen driving this station wagon with the little girl.
Stoic faces.
Yeah, driving along the coast, and I guess they're still in California because that's where the end of the movie was. They're driving in the station wagon along the coast, and the little girl's in the back seat, and she looks out the window, and there's some pterodactyls flying by. Mm-hmm. And we were just discussing, like, what? So now they're just dating again? And
they're back together, and now they have, like, an 8-year-old child.
An 8-year-old clone
they're just
child.
A family.
Like, that was
also, like... Yes.
That was too much for me. I was like...
We gotta be mom and dad for the kid.
I mean, maybe they were just driving her, like, to the police station or something, but, like...
Off to the orphanage with the clone Claire.
I picture them driving back to, like...
You can't put a clone in an orphanage. It's gonna get superpowers and come back and fuck you up.
What? But yeah, that was definitely over the top, I think.
Like, I pictured them driving back to his, like... cabin in the woods, and then just all three of them building it
finishing
together.
The house,
and like he finally lets Claire drive the van, happy. And then they're all happy. Like,
but that also brought up us being like, okay, well, I guess they're back together because they kissed when he lifted that log off of her leg. Like,
right, that was
I think it's very silly that
cheese.
in both of the movies, it's like a kiss happens after something terrible almost happens, but one of them saves each other. Then it's like, you go, it's okay.
Like all this ridiculous
like, well, like
stuff.
There's no like discussion that they're back together, but I guess we're just supposed to assume.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I have one question for Steven.
Okay.
Specifically.
He didn't Spielberg. For the original movie?
No, for this movie.
He didn't
all the movies.
He didn't direct these new ones.
Oh.
He only did
we were just asking him about Doctor Who.
Which one? Who directed this one? I don't know.
It's just
She's the director of Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Fallen Kingdom was just some random guy.
Whoever who makes decisions, like, why do you have a predominantly white cast for every single movie?
There were some people of colors.
They were like
there was
maybe extras though.
There was a black kid.
Yeah, but all like extras with maybe one line.
There was the black guy in the beginning who got eaten.
That's not okay. I'm just saying maybe that's not
diversify.
You are correct.
I'm not
diversify,
like maybe it's not.
Steven.
I just for me, I'm just like I'm watching all these. I'm like that's cool, but like, and yes, it would, in my opinion, be white people to fuck the world up completely. But I'm just like
rich white people, and they tried.
I mean, yeah, they're the ones that built this park and all that.
I know,
and they're the ones that were bidding for the dinosaurs.
I know. It's just one of those things where I'm just like, I mean, like, could you like hire
someone else
of color and like black actors,
yeah,
and
fair.
like native actors and indigenous people? Like, can you just like diversify a little bit? Maybe
that's all films though. That's not just.
I know it's all films. I know it's just Hollywood, but like, okay, then this question's for Hollywood. Like, can you do better in that sort of sense, and for LGBTQ plus and disabled people and all that stuff? Okay, good night, everyone. Thanks for listening to the podcast.
My TED Talk. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
I wanted to also talking about kind of silly over the top things was one, I feel that there was a very specific shot in the beginning of like when Claire is getting off of the plane or whatever that they brought, and there's like the shot of her foot like stepping down on that first step and then it goes up to her face. I'm like, that is to say, boom, I'm not wearing heels. Everyone stopped complaining about it from the first movie.
Right.
And I really hope that was intentional because that was the vibe that I got from that.
But you
and I
think
thought that was kind of silly. I think it was a very, like, there's no reason to have her foot hit that. It wasn't like some sort of crazy timing in the movie music.
It was literally just to show she wasn't wearing
heels.
heels.
I'm pretty sure it was to show that she wasn't wearing heels.
Do you think that was
because
like,
there was so much flack for the first one?
Yeah.
Do you think like that contributed to like I'm a good person now or whatever? Like they changed like her outfit and like her ideals and goals and whatever.
Well, I mean, yeah, like the first movie, it's like.
Which
I don't know
that's just
how
what
they
they usually do with women in movies. Is just like
she had
she's
a
less
character
like
development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She's no longer just viewing them as assets, and it's not about the money in her job. It's now like
she cares about.
But we all started the movie thinking they're just like it's okay if they die.
I did.
Yeah.
I know I can't speak for everybody, but I did. And another thing, I have a question about. I don't know much about dinosaurs. Don't know much about lizards. But when they're doing the surgery on the velociraptor and a tear rolls down its cheek, I don't think they can cry. And I'm like, I call bullshit when I saw that. Like that was one of the moments that are supposed to like give you empathy. Like, oh look, Chris Pratt's being a good mom and like comforting this crying dinosaur. But I'm like, no,
that shot, that shot was definitely too much.
I hated
the close up on the eye and just a single tear rolling down Blue's face. It's like,
calm down. Other things I was fine with. That one, no, I couldn't do it.
I loved the flashback footage of little baby raptors.
Home movies with Chris Pratt and the raptors, which I love to think about him filming that and just being by himself, saying all these things to nothing.
Right, because
I want to see that footage.
Yeah. For sure. Let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else specifically about this film, not tying into anything. Not tying into any of the previous films, but just this film as its own.
Standalone.
Yeah, as a standalone film, which it definitely could have been. Like, that's just it. I think you could have seen this movie without having seen any Jurassic Park movie ever, and you would have been okay.
It was still a fun and interesting movie.
You know, because they cover the whole dinosaurs are back. They've been back. They're gonna die. What do we do? And you're like, oh, okay, I'm good to go.
Like 10 minutes.
Yeah, like I'm ready for this film. All right.
And it's not in this like heavy-handed expository way.
Right. No, it's like, very like handed to you, and you're like, oh, I feel like I'm prepped.
I get this. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of nice. I did really like the shot. This is back to the cinematography.
Do you have a favorite shot? Because I have a favorite shot. What's yours?
My favorite shot in the film is the girl's bedroom window. That's mine!
I was like, we have to talk about that. I want to give it kudos for that shot. So
Where
good.
The Indoraptor's on the roof, and it's climbing down, and so the camera is...
leaning over the edge to look into the window.
Leaning over the edge, and so the camera is almost like from its perspective, where you're looking at it upside down. And, you know, it's a rotating image.
Yeah, because the shot starts, like, coming up behind the Indoraptor.
Right.
So it sort of goes over its head as it leans its head down. So then it's an upside-down shot of its perspective, and then it twists around so that you can see its claw tap on her glass. And that was beautiful.
And then the rest of the scene is from the girl's perspective inside the room, watching the raptor's shadow opening her window. Yeah, so it was a over-the-shoulder perspective switch to other perspective. And then
that was beautiful.
And then the two meet when they're in the room, and it's like, that was a cool transition, especially considering that the subject for the first half of the film, or the first half of that scene, isn't even actually there.
Yeah.
So literally the camera's just like, all right, let's do this like twist motion stuff, and then the girl's here, cool.
Yeah.
You know, and then they add it in later.
Sorry, you go.
Oh, well, I was going to say, speaking of adding in later, a huge thing with Jurassic Park is the use of practical effect puppets and robots.
Yes, which is, I brought that up when we watched the original.
And with Jurassic World, everything was heavily CG, and CG always existed even in the first Jurassic Park. There was
wasn't
CG.
Necessarily good, but it was CG.
But there were massive robots and puppets, and in Jurassic World, they used a little bit, but not as much. So let's talk about that in Fallen Kingdom. Almost 100% CG.
All CG. And I'm someone who...
There may have been a scene with a puppet or a robot, but I can't think of a single scene off the top of my head that was not CG.
Yeah, there's nothing that I noticed specifically, and that's what I was talking when we watched just Lost World before we watched this new one. Was I was like, oh, I loved the scene where there's like the puppet long neck or whatever, and they're talking. It's like, I love things like that, and I generally do notice when they use the more practical effects and puppetry.
Yeah. And
the fact that nothing stood out to me to make me go, oh, practical effects. I'm like, I don't think there was.
Yeah, I don't think there was.
I think maybe they were trying to just rely on
the CG was amazing.
It was beautiful.
Way better than the first Jurassic World. Obviously way better than the old films, but I mean, even just the technological jump in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Way better. Gorgeous. But it would have been nice to have some robots, you know. I mean, you look at the first film, and they've got a full-size robotic T-Rex in the rain, in the mud, with people like
a
holding
pain
umbrellas
for them to
over it,
film.
and it's constantly short-circuiting and like would move on its own and scare the crap out of people on set because no one was at the controls, and it would just start moving.
Yeah.
And like that is awesome, you know.
I love things like that so much.
You know, Jurassic Park 2 and 3, there's people in suits where their lower halves are the raptor feet, and then they've got like the little robot things to move the arms, you know, or they would have the robots on set and then the guy is behind the camera doing like almost like reverse motion capture, where his movement is mimicked over there as opposed to
for
like
the robot,
recorded.
It's got sensors hooked up to the same hinges.
Yeah.
But have you seen the like actual raptor motion capture for the new films?
For the new film, no, I have not.
There's I've seen some clips of the guys in the suits as like Delta, Blue, and Charlie.
That's funny.
It's like so
Chris
funny.
Pratt's
so we
like,
don't have the fun puppet moments and the T-Rex short-circuiting and that, but we have some great footage of these three randos.
Three random humans in ball suits
I know they're
acting as
not
raptors.
randos. I know they're very skilled in what
Yes,
they do
professionals.
to be they're professional dinosaurs. What a resume.
Yeah.
I was once a professional raptor. Chris Pratt loved me. But yeah.
Okay, so any final thoughts? I think we've definitely had a pretty good discussion. Just go around. Megan?
Final thoughts, Megan?
It was
You gotta speak up.
It was a good movie. It was a good movie.
It was a good movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Final thoughts is I generally go to the theater if I want to go and watch specifically like a movie like Jurassic Park or a superhero movie.
Mm-hmm.
I go there so that I can be entertained and to have fun, and especially if I get some sort of like emotional reaction at some point, that is what signifies a good movie to me. And so this one falls under all of those categories for like
Nice.
some of the flaws and the silly things that we did point out, but I have that with most movies. So, and there's things I'm willing to overlook, but I went to the theater, I had a good time. Matt, who was sitting next to me, heard me like gasp at the part because there's another kind of a silly thing was when the Indoraptor does like play a trick, the guy comes in, it's like the whole audience is like ha 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 hee, and then his arm gets fucking bitten off in 30 seconds. I'm like, I just went from laughing to going like
that was
I
good.
audibly gasped and Matt laughed at me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so it got the emotional reaction. I had fun, I enjoyed myself. I thought it was a good movie, and so I would recommend going to see it.
I would recommend it as well. I believe that it is better than the first Lost World. I mean, not Lost World. Better than the first Jurassic World.
Jurassic World, yeah. I keep getting them mixed up too.
Yeah. As far as its ranking in the franchise, that's something we could do. Rank the movies.
I would be so biased though because when I was younger, Jurassic Park 3 was my favorite. And I can acknowledge that it's not the best, but it was my favorite. But so you should not judge my ranking system.
No, I don't judge your ranking
I don't
system.
think I could rank right now.
You don't think so?
A lot of people hated number 3.
Well,
I loved it so much.
The original Jurassic Park is my favorite.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
it's most iconic.
The Lost World as the sequel is number 2. So 1 and 2 are 1 and 2.
Okay, I don't know why I'm getting mixed in my head. Is number 3 the one where like they
Spinosaurus.
lose the kids? Or is number 2 the
They
one?
lose the kids in like every movie.
No,
the
one where they get
my
tricked.
son went like parasailing.
No, like they get them there and then they finally realize like my son went parasailing. Like, is that number 2 or number 3? My brain can't think right now.
Yes, that's number 3, where Dr. Grant was tricked.
Yeah, he gets tricked.
No one get mad at me in
and
the
he's
comments.
Like,
I have brain
on
fog.
this island. There's 2. Oh my god.
We didn't talk about the second island. What about it? I want to know.
Exactly. There's 2 islands. So Jurassic Park is the original movie. What? Are you done, Megan?
No, my legs hurt so bad.
I'm sorry.
I'm in so much pain.
We'll wrap it up in a second.
We'll wrap it up. There's 2 islands.
No, we can keep talking. I have to keep moving.
The island
my
with
spine's fucked up.
Okay. The island with the park, and then the island with like the research and development, the R&D facilities and stuff, where they were technically made. Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom take place on the original island, Isla Sorna, where the original park was, and that's where they build the new park. Mm-hmm. But Jurassic Park 2 and 3 take place on Isla Nublar. Mm-hmm. Right? I'm getting the island names right.
Yeah. Isla Nublar is the one that we're talking about in the more recent films, so...
Right. And so, well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember. I can't remember which one is the one with the park and which one's the one with the R&D. There's Isla Sorna and Isla Nublar, and I can't remember which one's which right now.
I don't know. I know that they were all talking about Isla Nublar in this movie.
Okay,
so
then that's the original island.
Yeah, the OG
the
island.
original island
is Nublar.
with the park is Nublar, and Isla Sorna is the island from number 2 and number 3. And it's just really weird that they've never brought that back. They've never mentioned what happened to those dinosaurs. Like, okay, we just had a volcano explode, but there's nothing that says what happened to the second island.
I don't know.
Are we just led to believe that after the events of the second film, they were all removed? But they weren't. They ended up only getting the T-Rex off the island, and then at the end, it's taken back. So, I don't know if that's a plot hole or it's going to come up next. Like, there's a second island.
Yeah. I'm glad I brought up Jurassic Park 3 then.
Yeah.
Because that spawned us being like, oh yeah, what about the other island? Well, are we supposed to be just like believe maybe it was also destroyed in the explosion? But I don't know.
No, but it was like miles. There's
it's too far away.
So in the second movie, they say that there's a chain of islands. You know, there's a chain of islands, 5 islands. Not all of them with dinosaurs, though, but just that's the island chain. And I don't know how canon that is nowadays, but like that was brought, and then the whole lysine deficiency thing, like that's obviously not sticking around, but that the animals would have died without being fed injections and stuff. But so maybe one island died off and the other didn't, or maybe when they created Jurassic World, they consolidated everything. That's because they had to get the dinosaurs from somewhere. I don't know. But I guess that will be the plot of the next film, maybe. Ideally, we'll see in another 2 to 3 years. But for now, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks for joining us. Tune in next time. Bye.